Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. There have been many statements, statistics and figures mentioned here this evening, and I want to recognise at the outset that the heart of this issue is about our people, most particularly our students, and I'm talking as Deakin now, our students and our staff. I particularly commend the student, Zoe, the graduate, Bernadette, our graduate, a previous Premier of the State, a predecessor graduate, a member of the upper house of the Legislative Assembly. I recognise the Minister, Jala Pulford, the Honourable Minister, who has regional partnerships and has been a good friend to Deakin. It's the impact of our people that I continue to lose sleep over. And why do I do that? Because creating new opportunities for people to live, learn and work in the region, we must find a lasting solution that will encourage more students across the region into higher education. I say this from the position that I live in Geelong. I do not live in Melbourne. I live in a regional city. I contribute to a regional city. I grew up and was born in a mining town. I understand the issues of the region. I join previous speakers in acknowledging and welcoming the passionate show of support from higher education across the community who are here tonight. I have read the online petition. I have read the local news and many, many other community comments and contributions which have come to my email over the last few days, and the many, many, many phone calls I have taken from Deakin alumni across the world regarding this matter. We may have different views on a few things, but there's one thing we definitely share: a commitment to do everything we can to ensure that there is a higher education offering in the Southwest for years to come, and I do not step back from that commitment. And regardless of the final outcome of these conversations, I assure each and every one of those students who are currently enrolled at Deakin Warrnambool campus that they will be able to graduate with a Deakin degree, provided, of course, that they pass their exams. The challenge. It's important to recognise the challenge we face. And I was just about to call you Premier. Dennis, you asked me for the facts. I'll give you a quick few. Enrolments at our Warrnambool campus have declined from a high of 1,342 in 2011 to 872 this year. Now, 2011, for those of you not involved in higher education, was, of course, the federal legislation that took the cap off places at universities and gave the places to students and said, if you're qualified, you can pick whichever university you wish in Australia. There has been across Australia, as a consequence of this choice to the students from regional and rural campuses towards the big metropolitan cities. I am not big enough to stop that drift. From the moment in 2011 at 1,342, and may I note that other regional campuses usually close when they hit 2,000 students. We did not. From that time, we have worked very hard to improve student numbers and to try to neutralise the impact of what was known as, and is known as, the demand-driven system, which essentially has created this problem. The sharp decline in enrolments has come at a time when, and I have been Vice-Chancellor for almost 6 years, we have invested, and people have asked me how much, so I will tell you, $45 million in looking at aspects of this campus that we can improve. And I'll go through some of them now because they have been mentioned, and I will begin with marine science. More than $5 million was invested in marine science, including that lovely new research vessel you all love. I was assured that if we did that investment, the numbers would flow. Today, there are 127 students in marine science. There were 169 in 2011. With the same expectation, we added a third year to the law degree because the predictions were that the numbers would grow. That did not eventuate, and the numbers have declined since 2011. I've been accused that we never visit schools. There have been 65, in 2015, there were 65 visits to schools in this region, and you know how many schools there are. They're just around 20 that we would see as schools where there would be supply. 65 visits, that's not counting the 2,000 people who were given tours of the Warrnambool campus. That's not counting the open day which about 1,000 people come to. I reflect that 3,900 people have signed the petition. So, and I observed that 20% of the petition people had signed the petition and maybe had chosen to enrol in the subject, we would not be here. Tonight we have also had questions about agriculture. I say to you that the VTAC data, the Victorian Tertiary Agency data, along with our engagement with industry, suggests that agriculture would be difficult here. Glenormiston sits as a beacon to our left, I think. Very, very few preferences are for agriculture anywhere, for agriculture any of you. Those of you who know me well would know that if there were even shown a glimmer that we could get a class full, I would have done something about it. There is no evidence that we could get those enrolments here, given no other agriculture school is thriving in any shape or form. The numbers tell the story, and I regret this. Only 15% of the VTAC preference applications made by students who live in southwest Victoria selected Deakin Warrnambool. More students, around 20%, selected Federation University. Our students at Warrnambool now represent 2.5% of all of Deakin's on-campus enrolments. To put that into perspective, the Berwick campus at Monash makes about 3.5% of its students' load. So what are the issues preventing growth? That's the question that we need to solve. So what are the issues? I know them well. We have an ATAR cut-off at Warrnambool, which is 50. We cannot go lower. Numbers of you have said, increase the ATAR. I'm not sure that will help our position here because it would exclude a number of students. What we know is that while around 80% of our students come from the local region, many other school leavers do not achieve the ATAR required to get into Deakin as it currently stands. What do? Instead of entering a pathway to get a qualification which will enable them to get into the degree, they choose to go around Deakin to another university that will offer them a place in a degree. Before the demand-driven system, when the caps were on, they used to come to the pathway and then come in the next year. And that is mostly where our loss is those students are choosing other universities. Many students and their families, many of you in this room, would drive past the Warrnambool campus towards Melbourne and to other campuses. At the same time, many school leavers who do achieve the ATAR write to me and say, the only reason I didn't go to Warrnambool because I wanted to leave home and see the world. I don't think there is anybody who has had a university education would forgive people for being curious, for wanting to see another view and to experience something different. And I congratulate them and say, follow your dream, enjoy your experience, and come home to your regional town when you have an education. Thirdly, our industry engagement has confirmed a growing gap between what we offer, what Deakin offers, bachelor degrees to PhDs, you've mentioned our world-class research, and the particular needs of a region where the number of people who attain a Year 12 VCE above 50 is in decline. If you had to ask me the most significant issue for regional areas across Australia, and I include where I live in Geelong right there, and Warrnambool fits right there, is having some kind of strategy for keeping our children at primary school to be literate and numerate, to get them to high school to understand the beauty and the curiosity of the world in which they live, and to encourage them to get Year 12 and then to choose either a TAFE, some form of post-school qualification. If they do not get a Year 12 VCE and an ATAR of more than 50, there is no chance of coming to Deakin unless they do a pathway. Many students choose not to do that anymore and choose a different university. I see that as our most significant problem. So what is the sum of the three issues? Deakin's trademark is our student experience. We have been number one for student experience in Victoria. Of the 8 universities, we have been number one for 5 years and likely to be number one again this year. However, our Warrnambool students are telling us that they don't enjoy their experience at Warrnambool. The classes are too small. They don't want to do anything online. They want everything face-to-face. You know what? I agree. But I do think, as a community in a digital world where machines, whether you like it or not, are going to be with us forever, we need to learn about the digital environment. But I accept your view that you don't want to have it online. There are consequences to having 2 students in a class face-to-face. How do you teach the learning outcome of teamwork? How do you teach collaboration? How do you teach cooperation? The very skills that graduates are selected for and the very skills that the many industries in this room admire and celebrate and demand from the university. So what are the options and what's next? Well, we've not walked away. Thank you for coming and for paying attention that there is an issue in this town. I feel deeply honoured that people have looked up and said, we need our university. I thank you for that. Of the options being considered, I believe the best option is a partnership approach that ensures there is a higher education offering in the Southwest for years to come. I believe that. We are looking for a dual sector provider which is able to meet some of those needs which Deakin cannot meet and to provide some of those diplomas which will give the pathway to a degree that Deakin is currently unable to provide. We do not have funding for those areas. We are not a dual sector university, and my council, to whom I am accountable, has made that decision. Right now, as I stand here tonight, you would all know, and many staff that I spoke to all the staff at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, as soon as I realised that the matter, that a confidential briefing had been leaked in some way, I know not how, it's irrelevant. I spoke to staff to get them up to speed because they are my main concern. The staff concern is my main concern because, you know, without staff, you can't teach or educate the wonderful students you have heard so eloquently tonight. So I stress that I have talked to quite a lot of people. Right now, there is not a deal on the table. If I say to you, Janice, that I think our best way forward is to work collaboratively, to look for a solution, to do it in harmony in a community, and to say, well, what does the future look like rather than where have we been? Where we have been has been a grand 20-year education for the town. Where we are now is not sustainable. 872 students this year will translate to 700 students next year. And the following year, we will go to 500. That is unviable. I am raising the issue now so we can start to look at this issue. I am not in charge of Commonwealth or indeed state legislation, but I am in charge of the quality of the student teaching and learning and the student experience at Deakin. And I give you my word that quality and producing graduates who are global, well-educated citizens able to work and to survive in this world is something I will not step back from. So I look you in the eye, ladies and gentlemen, the citizens of Warrnambool. If you are truly interested in a higher education establishment in this town, work with me and help us find a solution, which is a partnership, where there is a university campus that people come to and participate in and are interested in, and not only interested when suddenly it might disappear. I give you my word that I will work with you. There are numbers of my staff in this room, staff who've come all the way from Burwood across a bridge with nightmare traffic that you cannot imagine, have taken hours to get here, to be here to listen and to be with me to try and make sure that we can give you the help that you need. So in the meantime, we're doing everything we can. There are many questions without answers, but I will do my best to answer your questions as honestly and as directly as I can. Thank you.